Welcome to another What You Doing podcast. My name is Matt. We have an exciting one for you today. I was so excited to connect with this person and do this interview. This was absolutely amazing. You know, because you saw it when you clicked on the title. This episode, I'm sitting down with the illustrious, the amazing, the fantastic Banana Chan. Banana and I are sitting down to discuss mainly their upcoming game, Knockoff, the second in the Mephistopheles trilogy, but we also touch on a number of their other games as well. I could sit here and talk about all of Banana's incredible games and all the amazing things that they've worked on, but we talk about it enough during the interview, so let's get to it. A little editor's note here. Banana sent me some pickups for stuff that she felt she maybe didn't cover well enough during the interview and stuff she wanted to clarify and stuff, so you might notice those. I edited those in where it was most appropriate for the conversation. But if it sounds like all of a sudden there's a bit that was recorded later, it's because it was.
Can you hear me now?
We did it.
Yay! You know what's really weird? It's because I pressed the button that says mute on my headphones.
See, that's why I try to not use those buttons because there's this little mute button right here on my microphone. I don't remember that this guy exists.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll move it and I'll mute it and then I'll be talking and people will be like, I can't hear. And I'm like, this little fucking guy right here.
Of course. It's always like that. Never trust technology.
Yours was tricky. Yours was like on the back of your headset? That's wild.
Yeah, there's like a little button. I don't know if you wait, can you see it? I guess you can't. But there's like a little button on the side that you have to press. It's really annoying.
Yeah, you know, right here on the back, right where you would take it off.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right where you might touch.
Yeah, very normal. Absolutely a logical place for it to be.
Technology. Throw it all out. Throw it all technology. Just get rid of it. Start over.
Yeah, I feel like we should start over. And
we're going back to the wheel and the mill.
Yeah, I think we should workshop. Yeah, we should workshop all of that. Start over.
It'll go great. We'll get tons of investors because these are great ideas.
Yeah, and we're gonna start fresh with currency too.
Sure, why not? It's all good.
Exactly.
We're gonna go. I was having a discussion with somebody, and that came up, and they're like, "Yeah, so many people want to go back to the gold standard." I was like, "The thing you need to know about going back to the gold standard is, even the little bit that I understand about economics is, anyone who thinks that that's a good idea doesn't understand economics."
Oh God, no!
Everyone who thinks that's a good idea doesn't understand that would immediately cause the entire global economy to collapse in ways that we cannot fathom.
That is so funny. Yeah, that is not a good idea.
No.
But hey, I think it's hilarious.
Why not? It's 2025.
You know what? Let's try something different. Let's try it out and see what happens. I mean, what's the worst that can go wrong?
Yeah.
At this point?
Why not? Just like an entire gold bar down to the grocery store and walk home with one carton of eggs. And that's
I mean, that's how much eggs cost now.
They literally almost doubled in price at our Aldi's, and I was like, nah, I guess it's our turn now. I guess.
Oh God, that's terrible.
Man, I was like, well,
yeah, the world's an interesting place right now. Very interesting.
I would like fewer interesting things to happen. The thing I keep saying, I would like fewer historically significant times during my life.
I wish things were just a little boring. Just
for like a year. Could we just have like 1 year to catch up?
Yeah, seriously. I feel like that would be a good time. It would be a good time for everyone, I think.
Yeah, everyone could have 1 year to just decompress and process some feelings.
And then we'll go back to chaos the next year.
Yeah. Listen, you're only going to get a year.
Yeah.
We'll do like 3 on, 1 off.
Yes. Yeah. It's like the Purge, but like the opposite of the Purge.
It's the opposite of Purge in that year everyone goes and gets like goes to therapy and everybody gets all their new meds and all,
everything is functional for a year and then shit can just go wild, whatever.
And then you go back to your bunker in the woods for the next 3 years and then you can emerge like Brendan Fraser in that movie.
Exactly.
And this is what happens when one thing of technology breaks for one moment is you're immediately like, well, burn the world down. Whatever. I don't care.
Let's just start over, burn it down, try it. Yeah.
Yeah. If everyone loved that Fallout show, so that's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it'll work. It'll work great.
Yeah. That's a good point. It'll just be like Fallout, but...
Yeah.
I mean...
People...
we won't use bottle caps, probably.
I don't think there's enough glass bottles for that to be a functional currency.
I agree. Yeah.
It would have to be like, those would be dollars, and then you'd have like can tab.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah, it would have to be like little can tabs, or, if you have a bunch of cans, you just like take pieces of the can to use as currency. So we're back to gold now at this point.
Right, yeah, and then that just replaces gold, and then we have to give you vouchers for the amount of can tabs, because you can't travel around with like 10,000 can tabs. That's too much. We have to give you like a writ.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we've invented money again, and we did it.
Yeah.
Success.
Good job.
So this is the point in the convo, as it always happens, because this is the fun thing about doing a podcast, where I go, "Hi everybody, welcome to What You Doing, the podcast." I'm here with the incredible, amazing Banana Chan, who, as I said with another recent guest, for some reason answered by email. Incredible. We're here. No, listen. If I can self-deprecate myself the smallest amount to build up someone else, that's fine. I can handle that. I can take that hit. It's okay.
Oh no, you're too sweet.
I wake up in the morning. I'm feeling good. I can knock myself down a little bit to elevate someone else. That's fine. It's not that big a deal.
We can elevate everyone.
Well, the trick is to not do it too much.
Right. You don't want to do that. Yeah.
The trick is to do is not like I think I'm garbage, but like, listen, I'm no Banana Chan. That's what I always say.
Stop.
So we're here today to talk about Knockoff. Incredible new game in your... I tried to say this word 15 times. Mephistopheles. I did it.
Oh, hey. Yes.
Sometimes, I don't know if this is like a learning disability thing or a me thing. Sometimes I look at a word and I just go, oh, no, that's not gonna...
It's a hard word.
That's not gonna fly.
Yeah, like I've talked to folks before and I was just like, yeah, it's going to be called the Mephistopheles trilogy. And they're like, are you sure you want to call it that? And I'm like, you know what? It's too late. It's already written. Right? It's already in the text. I can't go back.
We should have had this convo earlier if this was your feelings. We should have.
Yeah.
But in the way that I forget to do sometimes, Banana, please do a little intro for everybody who might not be familiar with you or your games or what we're here to talk about.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me. My name is Banana Chan. I am the owner of a small board game / role-playing game publishing company called Read Write Memory. I am an award-winning designer. I am a screenwriter, and some of my more notable work has been on Jean Chaublin, The Banquet Hall, The Revenant Society, Chucky the board game. I've done some.
You did a Chucky board game?
Yeah, this was. I want to say like a couple of years ago we designed it. It was through Trick or Treat Studios, if you know them.
No.
But they did Halloween the board game. They did a bunch of board games. They're all horror themed. What they're known for is their masks. So they produce masks for various horror movies, horror TV shows and stuff like that. And then they started doing masks for the public, right? So they started doing horror masks for like, just like fans of the genre. And then they got into board games. So yeah.
They had a lot of plastic molding equipment and they went, you know what we could do? It'd be funny.
Yeah.
That's how it works. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. That was so shocking.
Yeah, no worries. And what else have I done? Oh yeah, I did some work for Betrayal at House on the Hill, Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. And currently I have Knockoff, which is the second book in the Mephistopheles trilogy, the first one being Forgery. And it's just a bunch of games. It's a 3-part story about this weird demon that acts as a corruptive muse for artists.
I love it. It's such a fun idea, and we'll get into it. because Forgery was also incredible, and Knockoff is amazing. And then right there in the middle, you as I was reading before the interview, Darkness at the Brink of Ohio.
Yes.
Because I was like, I feel like this is like a secret like coda to this, where it's like, yeah, okay, these are fun, and then it's like, there's like this little side story.
Yes.
So we'll talk about all of them, I'm sure. But Knockoff mainly. Gosh, where do you even start? So Knockoff is a game about a struggling fashion designer. You move to the big city and are visited by this. Well, no, you're not visited by the demon. That's Forgery. In Knockoff, you find a cursed fashion pattern, which I think is the funniest thing. Like, yeah. I love the idea, because I've seen fashion patterns in estate sales and stuff, and I like the idea of just like flipping through this record bin and just you're like, okay, this dress, and then it's just like you pick one out, and it's like, and you're like, no, this is it. This is the one. Yeah, this is the good one. Can I get this one? Oh, this is the glowing one. Yeah, that's gonna go great.
You need them. I mean, like, ideas are hard to come by sometimes. So, hey,
you have to be bold with your choices. So yeah, where did the sort of initial concept for Knockoff come from?
Yeah, so I always wanted to do this trilogy. So after we finished Forgery, after it got funded, after it was, pretty much wrapped up, Carlos Cisco and I, he's a friend of mine. He was a staff writer for Star Trek Discovery. We started chatting, and we were like, let's do a screenplay. And so we adapted Forgery into a screenplay. And then after we adapted Forgery into a screenplay, I was like, I should do a trilogy. And so the second game came out of just being like, hey, I want to do something about fashion. And the third one is going to be about music. So for a little bit more context, the first game, you're playing Tempest, and she's a disgruntled art forger who basically just wants to, she wants to make ends meet. And she went to art school. She is very good at the act of forging paintings. However, when it comes to her own work, when it comes to trying to sell at a gallery show or even show at a gallery show, she just hasn't had a lot of luck. And so one day she receives an email from this strange man who works in a corporate office asking her to recreate a strange demonic curse painting. And so she does that. And as she's recreating this curse painting, the demon comes to life and grants her all of her desires. And in this game, in Knockoff, we're faced with something similar where it's a fashion designer. He's a fast fashion designer. He works at a company called Imprint that focuses on fast fashion. And if you're not familiar with the fast fashion world, basically a lot of the designers, they would take ideas from Etsy or other brands like Gucci or Prada, and they would take those ideas that are readily available and try to adapt them into something that they would make probably at a lower cost point. And so they would do that, and because Fashion Week happens twice every year, Marcos, who's the lead in this game, he is trying to find something that would impress everyone at the fast fashion company. And so he goes to an estate sale, he finds this book, he finds the design, and decides to recreate it.
I really like the idea. I like how you trailed off when talking about Forgery, where it's like, yeah, and she makes a cursed painting. And it's just like, yeah, and it's great. It's great. And everything goes great. She recreates the cursed painting, and then there's two of them, and then everything is great. And she goes home. That's the end of the story.
I don't want to spoil it too much. A lot of things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's at the expense of her friendships and the people around her.
Yeah.
And I think for Forgery, it did touch a little bit upon just like the idea of parasocial relationships, and then that sort of led into Darkness at the Brink of Ohio. This is going to be our quick pivot, but that's the reason why I wanted to do Darkness at the Brink of Ohio, because I was thinking a lot about parasocial relationships at the time. And then I was like, okay, I should go back to Knockoff. And so there was a lot of going back and forth there.
the very fun thing that I'll watch like TTRPG designers do of they'll be making a game and they'll go, I have an idea. I'm going to make this other game really quick. And then I'm going to come back to this game.
Oh God. Yeah.
Got to recharge my creative energy really quick by getting this other idea done. And then I can come back. It's very fun.
Yeah. The problem with that is that you forget that fulfillment is a thing. And so there are stretch goals, there are add-ons, there's extra merch that you also have to create as a result of your little tangent.
So you know what's funny? I thought you meant personal fulfillment, like like artistic fulfillment, and you meant fulfillment with a capital F. Like
yeah. I completely forgot that we have to fulfill everything that we promised our backers. So
that's the fourth. Yeah. That's the fourth game in the trilogy is fulfillment, and that's when they all meet together and form heroes from heroes.
Yes, exactly.
That's how it goes. So
I'm just thinking like a Gundam or like a mech.
Just everyone holding up their cursed artistic items and putting them together and banishing the demon. Knockoff and forgery by extension, because I think it's really hard to talk about one without the other, because I think there's a lot of obvious, themes, like narrative themes and mechanic themes. Both deal with the physicality of play in a really interesting way. I remember yelling about people about forgery because forgery, since we haven't mentioned it, is a paint by numbers game.
Yes, it is.
And you have prompts where it will describe a situation like a lot of other sort of journaling games. And once you determine your choice, it will tell you what colors to use. And I think that's just such an amazing idea to take a concept that I think a lot of people are familiar with, probably even more people than like roll a die. You know what I mean? Like I feel like people get roll a die or pull a card, but it's like, oh yeah, paint by numbers, that thing a lot of people did as kids. Just such an interesting way to shape a game artifact. Like at the end of play, you have this thing that like, yeah, you painted all of those colors that way because of the prompts in the game, and yours is going to be yours. And in a similar way, Knockoff, again, we didn't mention it, the mechanics are you're cutting fabric samples out and pasting them on this sort of paper doll of the demon. And again, it has such an interesting like use of physicality, like a physical action that you're doing that is what the character is doing. It's you're so much more connected to the character. What is it about these like physical actions that interest you in these designs?
Yeah, thank you for picking that up, by the way. It was nice to be like, okay, you're just like the character and you're trying to like, mimic their actions. But along with that, I just really like the idea of having an artifact at the end of a game, something to commemorate your experience playing the thing. And I'm not really a fan of the idea of replayability, but I do really like the idea of, hey, this is, a thing that you did. This is something that you created. This is something that that you spent time working towards. And so we can get to why I don't like replayability, but I do see that in a lot of my games, and now that we're talking about this, a lot of my previous games have also had that like physicality element to it, where like Deimos Academy, it has paper dolls, you're cutting up paper dolls, you're coloring in a coloring book as you're going through different rooms. For a little bit of context, that game is about being an adult returning back to your old boarding school, which also is cursed. And you have all these characters that are paper dolls that you can choose from, and you can add little uniforms to them and things. I designed that with Austin Taylor and Amanda Call, and that was a really fun project. But prior to that, I was also thinking about just not physicality, but artifacts in general. such as, can we have like an audio sample at the end of this? Can we have, uh, video clips of you playing something? And it goes back to, I think, my LARP days where I made a game called, this is for the Golden Cobra Awards. This was like ages and ages ago. I think it was like 2016. And it was called, oh gosh, what was it called? They're Onto Me? Yes, it was called They're Onto Me. And basically it's an ARG, but it was like a DIY, like do it yourself ARG, where you're responding to prompts via a vlog. And so you're vlogging yourself, responding to these questions, going through your day. And things get weirder and weirder as like this weird alien invasion happens, and at the end of it you have a collection of vlogs that you could just like watch, or post online, or I don't know, share with your friends, do whatever you want with it. And so yeah, I just really like the idea of having something after you play.
And I think it's interesting that it's not just I wrote a little story, which is fine. Like not to unintentionally bash that, but it's interesting to see a different space, a different thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned replayability, and it was going to come up. So let's
Yeah.
let's jump into it, because I was going to say, I'm like, it's kind of difficult to paint a painting again. I think you could if you wanted to, but I think kind of the draw of these things is you're gonna experience it new once. And for both of these, and Darkness at the Brink of Ohio in the same way, which is played to a soundtrack, are non-replayable, like you mentioned. So is this like an intentional choice that you've made? Is this a thing you've stumbled onto and leaned into?
Yeah, so I have my own feelings about replayability. However, those games are replayable. I created additional, so for example, like with Forgery, I created additional demons that you can recreate, you can paint over. And, your choices are going to be different if you play a different, set of choose your own adventure paths. So there's that. With Darkness of the Brink of Ohio, even though the soundtrack is fixed, you have various different characters that you can pick from and sort of get into the mindset of. For me personally, I don't like the idea of replayability because I only play a video game once. I only watch a movie once. I only have so much time in my life to consume pieces of media, and I like things to be, to be experienced once. It's fresh. It feels like I'm just seeing this for the first time, and I like that moment. And when I think back on that moment, I feel like I have more fondness for that rather than like doing it again over and over again. And so that's my own beef with replayability.
That's what I got. And it makes sense that games that designed to be played once, you end up with a unique artifact that is less about re-experiencing the story and more about experiencing the journey, I guess, the process of it. Like you said, you have this series of vlogs, like you could do whatever you want. It's like, oh, what if I, wait a year and then I watch it again? And it's like, have I, once I have distance from the prompts, like, do I remember everything? Am I confused about some of this? Do I remember, and that I think is an interesting sort of metatextual layer to it, right? Where, you look back at it and maybe you don't have perfect memory as to why this is red as opposed to green, but you remember the prompt or you remember the moments or something like that.
Right.
And I think,
yeah, definitely.
I think that's exciting. I think it's a thing that has kind of, I don't want to say turned me off of journaling games, but I think has kind of not grabbed me in the way it has for some other people, where I just kind of feel like, okay, like I wrote some stuff, that's cool. I could do that anytime. And people grab it and love it, and that's great. More power to them. But I always, I'm very similar. Like I very, very rarely replay a video game. I think I've only rewatched like a couple movies. And it's more,
Right.
It's more the thing is like, what I'm going to do is watch that movie and another thing is going to be happening and the movie is secondary. For a lot of the same reasons, like I could, I can just think about, as much as I love Mass Effect, I don't need to play Mass Effect again. I can think about it and I can go, all right, yeah, Mass Effect. Remember that part? Yeah, that was cool. And I can move on.
I'll watch the movie or TV show or whatever happens out of it.
That would be, I keep forgetting that they're supposed to be making a Mass Effect TV show.
Yeah, it's a TV show, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
I'm nervous excited where based off of the success of like Last of Us and Fallout, like, are they good? But then so like those were good, but then Halo was really bad. And so like,
oh, I forgot about Halo.
Right. I feel like a lot of people did. I feel like a lot of people very quickly forgot about the Halo show because they were like, you know what people want out of this Halo TV show is they want Earth and they want like cool, like humans. And it's like, that's the two things that show up the least in Halo, my dude. So I'm and especially as it goes longer, especially as it takes longer and longer.
Yeah.
I feel like that's never a good sign.
Yeah, if it drags on for too long and it doesn't get to the core of it, I feel like I don't know. It's hard to make TV shows. I know it's hard to make movies. I know it's hard to like do anything creative. Especially when there's so much pushback and, with a property like Halo, you probably get a lot of pushback and a lot of, executives telling you what to do for something like that.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, you can really see like the creative freedom and care that's being put into shows like Last of Us or Fallout. And so, I don't know, it feels very different.
Yeah. It's that thing where I want to be hopeful but I think what gets it for me is they'll announce that they've optioned a thing and they'll be like, oh, we're gonna make a TV show, and it's like, okay, with who? For who? Like, what's the writer? What's the director? Like, what's the vibe? Especially when it's a property as huge as Mass Effect, where it's like, okay, what part are you gonna focus on? What character are you gonna like? Are you just gonna retell the game? Like, that's fine, but that's gonna be a very different thing than if they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna tell Andromeda even.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Fingers crossed.
So this is going to be a weird question. I'm just going to launch into it. I feel like there's a lot of imposter syndrome baked into these games. I feel like both of these are imposter syndrome, the game of just like not feeling good enough, not feeling real enough. And hey, listen, let me put my art critic hat on for a second. I think maybe the demons are a manifestation of negative energies based around creative endeavors.
I mean, that's accurate. That's very accurate. I'm not going to say it's not. Yes. It is very accurate.
I arted good. Yes.
Good job. Because wait till you see the third one.
That's threatening.
It is a little bit of a threat because I would say the third one, it's already written and drafted and everything. It's just going through playtesting and editing right now, but it goes a little bit more bonkers.
What's the third one? You gotta go hard.
Yeah. Is it okay if I tell some spoilers? I don't know.
If you want, and then okay. Here's what I'll say. If you want, go feel free. And then if at the end you go, hey, I didn't want to say that, you can say that and I'll cut it out in the edit.
Okay, cool. I'll just say it, whatever. So I think the first one is about actually facing the demon and like creating the demon and like being aware of it. The second one which is Knockoff, is about letting your demon and yourself create this weird fucked up baby together. And so you're creating this thing out of spite, out of jealousy, out of feeling like you're not enough, feeling like you've been pushed down by the world, and now you have this more things going on, and you're just like putting that out into the world, like putting out like more and more like terrible things into the world. The third one goes back to Y2K, and so It's 1999, and you are a musician. And basically, what happens is it is not necessarily the origin of the demon, but you do turn into a demon. So the demon that shows up in Forgery is going to be from the third book, which is called Sample.
Oh, it's a good name.
Thank you.
Good name. Good names all around. The whole thing. Good name. Very 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 punchy. Very evocative. Name will do a
Thank you.
lot.
I try.
I also think it's very funny. I said at the beginning, like, oh, the amazing Banana Shan. You're like, oh, stop. And then you're like, yo, my friend who writes for Star Trek Lower Decks and whatever, and I've made all these games and I do all these. It's very funny, very silly. I
You're
think
too kind.
I think people have a hard time accepting that like they've done a lot. And not even just in TTRPGs, but I think a lot of people struggle with the feeling of like not even like accepting compliments, but of just like, yeah, I've done a lot and I have achieved a lot. And there's a lot of reasons for it, and most of them are negative.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah, I think, yeah, I would agree with that. I think that just trying to, I don't know, it's always that feeling of like you're never gonna, it's like chasing the whale, right?
Mhm.
Like you're never gonna get there. Um, but at the end of the day, I think that, if you're creating something that you're excited for or happy about, maybe that's enough.
I think there's a happy middle between. I think a lot of people don't want to be seen as full of themselves, and so
Hmm.
I think push too far away of like no, like, don't talk about it, it's fine. And then I think more people should accept compliments and talk about their stuff, and like you could get there. I mean,
Hmm.
a lot of people who are creative and make amazing things could be more full of themselves and still not be full of themselves. You know what I mean? You could get a
Yeah,
couple notches
yeah.
on there and you'd be okay. Cross that question off. So what was it about fashion that like you wanted to make a game about it? Like what was kind of the idea, like the moment you were like, this is a game about cutting out little shapes and paste them on a guy?
Yeah, there are a lot of things. When I was living in New York, I used to go to fashion shows a lot. And I used to sneak into Fashion Week, all their parties. I say sneak into as if it's hard to do. It wasn't hard to do back then. Like, that's the reason why you have people like Anna Delvey, right? Where you could just like go to places, be seen, and just take a bunch of pictures and then tell people that you were like friends with celebrities or whatever. It's like really not that hard to just sneak into events back in the day in New York. I don't know how much harder it is now. I mean, recently I did go to a Paris Hilton thing, so that was like kind of weird.
I mean,
But
they're probably like, no, nah, it's fine. Come on.
yeah, yeah. Generally, it's like pretty easy to just go to these events and do whatever. And so I used to go to a lot of these events and just people watch, um, go to fashion events and get a lot of free stuff. They used to give out, free samples of lipstick or clothes. I remember like I got a jacket once. I got like, I don't know, it was like a full size thing of makeup. It was a lot.
That's
And
so funny,
so
just being
yeah,
handed a jacket. That's so
yeah.
funny.
They were just like there was like a whole table of jackets and they were like, pick your size, like what's your size? And I was like, okay, I'll just take that. And it's free. You just like walk out with a jacket and it was actually before the stores decided that was a bad idea, it was called Fashions Night Out. And so Fashions Night Out was started by, I actually don't remember who it was started by, but I know that the Olsen twins were somehow involved. And it was really strange. All these stores along Soho, they would open up their doors, they would give out free stuff. It was like, free jackets, free jeans, free hats, like whatever
Mhm.
you can get your hands on, and everyone would be drunk because they would all be serving alcohol. And so the expectation was people would get drunk, they'll buy stuff. But what ended up happening was people got drunk, they got the free stuff, and they left.
Mm-hmm.
And they would go to the next thing to get more drunk and more free stuff and even more unruly. So they stopped doing that because stores were losing money. And Fashion Week is still a thing. You know, they don't do as much alcohol as they used to, but there's still, you know, a lot of different events that you can go to. And I was thinking a lot about fashion. I was thinking a lot about, like, you know, how related it was to the art world. There's definitely like an intersection there because you see the regulars go to art galleries. Like the regulars that go to art galleries also go to these fashion events, and they also go to music events, and they also go to like all these different, like, if they're really ambitious, they would go to tech bro events. And so there are all these different things that don't really intersect, aside from the fact that there's free alcohol, there's free stuff, and sometimes you can, you know, bump into a celebrity or something there. And so I was thinking a lot about that. I wanted to make a game about, you know, all of these things that happened in New York, and Forgery was definitely like the first one where I was just like, okay, like, you know, this is about the art world. And then that leaked into fashion. And then finally, it went into music. But aside from that, I also wanted to talk a little bit about feeling like an other, and feeling othered, and sort of like feeling like, you know, you're working so hard towards your creative endeavors, but is it really creative because you are forging art or you're creating fast fashion? And is it really your own piece, right? Like, is it really your own art? And so I was tackling with a lot of these different ideas, and that's sort of how both of these games became a thing, where it's just like, you know, just trying to work in, specifically for Knockoff, trying to work in like corporate America is really tough. And there are expectations of people of color when they're working in corporate America. And so Marcos, he's a Black man. Obviously, our, you know, experiences are going to be very different. So along with Janaea Kemper, I also worked with Lexi McQueen, who was able to basically give me some guidance on how to direct Marcos's voice in Knockoff. Specifically, I wanted to make sure that he sounded real. He sounded like a real person. And so Lexi did a great job at going through the text, making sure that Marcos's voice was realistic, sounded like a real person, and also sounded like dialogue. I think that at times when I'm writing, I forget that I'm writing, like, you know, dialogue for a real person. It doesn't always sound like, you know, how people talk, and sometimes it just sounds like, you know, just like book text, right? So Lexi did a great job at going through all of that. So Janaea Kemper, when she was giving me her recommendations for people to study and people to read, she mentioned a few names. So one of the names was Willie Smith, and Willie Smith was like this Coty award-winning designer. The Cotys are like an industry award in fashion, and he popularized streetwear in the fashion world in the 70s. He was basically like really focused on trying to make fashion more accessible and trying to bring streetwear to, like, you know, to just like the runway basically. And he had a lot of influence from his sister. He was like very in tune with trying to make fashion more accessible to women of color, and so that was like basically his like big thing. He was definitely a pioneer of his work, and like I think a lot of bigger fashion houses had like the audacity to even like copy him, and so there were times where these bigger fashion houses would like copy him and not give him credit. And that sort of like influenced the voice of Marcos as well, influenced, like, you know, a lot of his experiences in the fashion world. Another person that I talk about a little bit was Dapper Dan. And so Dapper Dan actually has this great quote where he says, "I didn't do knockoffs, I did knock-ups." And the reason why he was talking about it was because he did a lot of work with logos. So he would take like a Gucci logo, for example, and he would basically like mess it up or like, you know, remix it a little bit to fit his own style. And so I remember in the same quote, he said something about like, you know, if you want like why give a person like one Gucci logo when you can give them like multiple Gucci logos? I'm probably butchering the quote, but he like really liked the idea of like taking something that was like pre-existing and just like remixing it. And a follow-up in that quote is that a knockoff is like people go to Canal Street or Canal, and they are looking for exact replicas. That's not what I did. I do what jazz musicians did in our culture. We take things that already exist and fashion them into who we are, and that's what I did with the logos. So Dapper Dan definitely was an inspiration for this game as well. Another designer who I want to make a reference to is Arthur McGee, who spent time at FIT like Marcos. So Marcos's experiences are definitely shaped by Arthur McGee as well. And he had a really hard time fitting in, the fashion design offices that he was working at when he first started out before he opened up his own shop. And then he had his break designing costumes for Broadway shows. And in the game itself, Marcos is actually reminded of McGee. Like there's a section where he talks about McGee and how he's like sort of like feeling like he's, doing his own thing like McGee is, because Marcos in the game, he is dressing an actor for a stage play. And so there's some references there to Black designers, Black fashion designers. And one thing that a lot of these people had in common, like a lot of these designers had in common, was that they actually worked really hard to carve a space out for themselves when the fashion world like really didn't give them that space. And so it was like truly inspiring to see like how they shaped their careers, just like, pushing through all of this stuff, all through the noise. And I think that's really what inspired the character of Marcos, just like trying to make sure that, he sort of had a similar experience. He had he had to go through like a lot of that in his own career. Again, I cannot thank Janaea Kemper enough for guiding me through this and also giving me all these suggestions for these designers, and sort of telling me what are some good resources, what are some things to look out for. I think that working with her has really helped shape Marcos's voice, Marcos's character, and seriously, without her, it would have been just really hard for me to grasp a voice for Marcos. So if you ever need a consultant or an editor or even a designer, I highly recommend checking out Janaea Kemper's work. I believe her handle is at Violet Riot. I think she's on Blue Sky, and I believe that's her primary social media outlet platform thing. Just taking all of that and trying to make it truly Marcos was something that I really wanted to do. And I added the corporate element to it because I work in corporate currently. I added the Marcos's family history in it, making it sort of parallel my own family history. So that way it's still me. It's still Marcos is still somewhat like me. But obviously we're two different people, and I just wanted to make sure that it's written in a respectful light and someone who feels real, who feels is actually going through these weird things that are happening to him. And so yeah, there's a lot that goes into Knockoff.
Okay. Take a second to order my cup on that one. There was a lot. just like, what do you think about fashion? 20 minutes later. All right. Let's. I find it really interesting that both of these games have characters. It's not a sort of generic, you are a painter and you are doing these things. It is a specific character with a name and physical representation in the art and all of these things decided. What is it that draws you to, what sort of made you design them that way as opposed to less specific, more open-ended? I don't want to say generic, that sounds wrong, but just sort of more specifically embodying a character and not just yourself in a strange situation.
Yeah. There are a couple of things. I think the first one is that they're snapshots of me at a certain time. So Tempest is definitely like me, maybe like 5 years ago or 4 years ago or whatever. And so I feel like there's a lot with her that I can relate to back then. Marcos is sort of like me, like 2 years ago. And a lot of his frustrations are similar to my frustrations back then, 2 years ago. And I think that that's one part of it. The second part of it is that these stories, these games, they sort of come from like a movie first lens. And so for me, I want to eventually have Knockoff adapted to a feature screenplay as well. I just kind of like the idea of them, being stories that you can play around with, but also being stories that can be visually seen on screen eventually.
So we'll eventually have the Banana Chan cinematic universe.
We'll see.
Listen, you laugh, and I bet you, like, 6 years, we'll get it. I'm calling it 6 years. I'm going to write it down, 6 years.
What year is it right now? 2020.
2025. So, I'm calling it 2031. I'll be able to get a Banana Chan cinematic universe box set. That's what I'm calling it. Movies don't work that fast anymore. They don't.
They don't.
Maybe like 8 years ago. Maybe. Oh my goodness. I find it really interesting that these games are in a series, like like intentionally so. Did you? And I think you mentioned you touched on this slightly. Did you go into designing Forgery with the idea that this would be continued, or that it would?
God.
Yeah, I feel like
not.
I feel like you said that you realized at some point it was going to be another one, but I wanted to sort of mention it specifically.
Yeah, I think Forgery, I mean, aside from it sort of spawning from me wanting to talk about my experiences living in New York and, what it's like going through the art scene there, I also, I would say like the moment that was the catalyst was when I was talking to my friend. Her name's Jenna. She made a painting, which is this really creepy demonic thing that she did for some charity show. And the thing didn't sell. Like, it was just like this weird, creepy little painting, and like it didn't sell. No one wanted it, and so the gallery person was like, "Hey, what do you want us to do with it?" And she was just like, "Just throw it out, whatever. I don't care." And then years later, she gets tagged in an Instagram post by some random person, like literally no name. It's like a series of numbers, like user whatever. And she's just like, she was texting me about it. She was just like, "This is the weirdest thing. Like, someone like literally tagged me, made an account, first of all, took a picture of the painting, tagged me, and then that was it. That's like their only post."
That's a horror movie.
Eventually, yeah, exactly.
That's the start of a horror movie.
Right, exactly. I was like, okay, we need to make this a thing. And so the cover for Forgery, you'll see that there's like that weird demon thing in the background. That's based off of her painting, which I can actually show you a picture of if I can find it real quick. It is weird.
God, what a terrifying thing to happen in your life. I might just quit the internet at that point.
Right? Just burn it all down, start again. Like, we don't need this. We really don't. Let me see if I can find her. She's been texting me too, because I was just like going back and forth with her about how she's now like showing this picture to all of her friends. Oh, this was like her last text to me. "He's a coming."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I know this is a podcast, but basically it's this pale, bald demon with bleeding eyes, a bloody mouth. I guess he kind of looks like, remember the gentleman from Buffy?
Yes. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that. Uh, so yeah, that that birthed a whole game series.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I love God. This feels like an A24 short, right? Where she paints the thing and then it doesn't sell and she has a lot of like internal struggle over it.
Mhm.
And then there's like sort of the short act 2 of her like dealing with the feelings of inadequacy and like, no, like it's okay. Like sometimes, I made it for me and then it was fine. Whatever happened after that was fine. And then like the start of act 3 is her getting that ping and then like trying to race around and figure out who this is. Ugh, that's ugh.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the account's been deleted since then, but yeah,
That
it was
doesn't
a weird
help.
time.
That doesn't make it
No.
that makes it more creepy in a way that I don't know how I feel about. Like
Yeah.
if it was just there
Like,
forever, then it's just like, yeah, somebody was like, "Oh, I saw this thing. Yeah, that's this person." But
right. Yeah. Who has this painting?
where it
I have
go?
no idea.
Or racing through the subway to catch a train. Yeah, that's there it is. And there's see in the Banana Chan cinematic universe, so that's the first one, right? And then you've got Knockoff, and then you have Sample, and then
Mhm.
you have the Darkness at the Brink of Ohio short, and then
Yes.
the really exciting thing is the Scooby-Doo extra episode.
Right. Yes. The
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo extra episode, which has all of the monsters in regular Scooby-Doo, but it turns out they're real monsters. They're not people with masks.
Yeah, it's a weird it's a weird short that like Adult Swim would have done 9 years ago, where it's Scooby-Doo but they're all monsters and it's really graphic and gory and stuff, and everybody has a bad time and you feel bad at the end and you can't go to sleep.
Yeah. Exactly.
There were too many of those. I was talking to my friend about Too Many Cooks. Do you remember Too Many Cooks?
Oh my God, I love Too Many Cooks.
I love it now as a person that didn't watch it at 1 a.m. accidentally. I can appreciate it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
That you know what, this is a great time to bring this up. So horror games I think are really hard to do.
Yes.
I think and I think I think a step up or a step down, I think depending on how easy it is for you to engage with it, is solo horror game. I think it takes a lot to get into the horror mindset, the mindset that I think you're going for when you want these sorts of games. And I will take a moment here to say how much I appreciate, at least in Dark Side of the Brink of Ohio, how much care and effort is put into content warnings and safety tools, which I think would be very easy to ignore with a solo experience. I think I don't want to say a lot of people, that sounds like I'm like adding somebody, but I think it would be very easy for a lot of designers to say like, well, people will understand what they want to do and their comfort level and things like and things like that. But I think it's really great to put in the, like, you have the content warnings, and then in getting started, the first step is, hey, go read those content warnings. Like, hey, don't get, I know you skipped it. I saw you skip it. Go back. And I think that is like great, because I think it's good to say, here's what you're getting into. Because I think especially for this sort of solo experience, it lets you be primed for it. It lets you understand like, okay, this is what I'm getting into. Okay, I got to, all right. You can, I think it's like the opposite of playing games that are cozy, right? It's like,
Yes.
okay, I need to get, I gotta be ready. I gotta be prepared for this. So that when it happens, you're not like, you're scared because you're like, oh my God, this is incredible. But you're able to take that feeling and like hold it because you were ready for it,
Yeah, for sure.
What is it? I feel like I talked a lot. I feel like sometimes on this podcast I talk a little much, and I should let the guests talk a little more.
Oh, it's all good.
That's a thing.
No, these are great points.
That's a balance. What is it about like horror games? Like what interests you in horror games? What draws you to horror games? I feel like a lot of your games could be quantified as horror games.
Yeah.
Even the Scooby-Doo one. We could call, like, what is it about designing horror experiences that interests you?
I think I really like horror as a genre. Like, I would say that. Yeah, I'm a big horror fan. Um, yeah,
I'll say that on a recording. Yeah, I think that's
yeah,
fair.
yeah. I'm a big horror fan. A lot of the VHS. I collect VHS tapes and DVDs because I like physical. I like physical media.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that I collect are generally all horror media, and yeah, growing up, I've just always been like a really big fan of horror. And for me, I think that the reason why I'm so attracted to that genre is, and I'm going to get into subgenres in a minute, but I think the reason why I like horror as a genre overall is that a while ago, I saw on, I think it was like Twitter, or I forget which social media platform it was, Threads, I don't know.
Somewhere.
But someone posted somewhere saying something like, depending on what kind of horror you like, it tells you like a little bit about who you are and what you're trying to work through, and what is the trauma that you're working through, and what is the thing that you're trying to learn more about when it comes to yourself. And so I took that away as thinking, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I really like that genre even more now. Like this makes sense to me. And in terms of subgenres, I really like, lately I've been really enjoying cosmic horror. I used to like cosmic horror a bit, but now I'm, getting really into it. And yeah, cosmic horror I'm a big fan of. I love, like, the quote unquote elevated horror. So that means like A24 stuff, and all the stuff that you see now, like, Substance. Yeah, like I think that I'm a big fan of body horror. I'm a big fan of stuff that tests, your psychological boundaries a little bit, because it talks about things that happen it's a parallel to like what happens in real life, right? So, as an example, I recently saw the Danish version of Speak No Evil, and it was intense. Have you seen the movie?
No, that's not Let the Right One In, right? They called it the same.
No, I think that's another movie.
Okay, yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
No, I've. It sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's psychological horror. It's about a couple that meets another couple on vacation, and
It's the James McAvoy one they just released, right?
yes, the
Yeah. Okay.
American version, the American version's watered down. The Danish version is very intense, and I think that the ending for it is more impactful than the American version as a result of all the different actions that the characters take to get them to a point where they're experiencing true horror. And I think it acts very well as a sort of like a warning tale. Like it's like very much like a, hey, like, be loyal to yourself when you're seeing warning signs in other people who are trying to manipulate you sort of story. And I really like that in the Danish version. I haven't seen the American version, but I heard that the ending is different and it's a happy ending. And I'm just like, I don't think it would have worked as well as a happy ending.
I watched I think 2 different trailers for that movie, and it felt like he was gonna murder fuck them, and so I don't feel like that was a deserved happy ending, very likely.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get to that point, and then it's just like, and it's great. Everybody's good.
Everyone got what they wanted,
That's
I guess.
that okay. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, it's very good. I'm a big fan of it. And yeah, I think that just in general, just that idea of like, horror is a reflection of like, of yourself and how you navigate the world. I think that that's really interesting. And then in terms of games, going back to games, because we are talking about games, I think that horror games are interesting because it's more introspective. It is similar to movies. It's especially solo games. It's like, it's similar to a movie where it does require a lot of introspection. It does require a lot of like thinking about your actions, what is going to happen, at a certain point in the game. And I think touching upon the content warning side of things, I think that if folks were excited for the things that are listed off in the content warnings, then that's a good sign of, you'll enjoy this game. And that'll help you sort of express or go through like the things that you are looking for when it comes to delving into, the psychological nature of things. I'm not saying that this is a replacement for therapy. It is not. But I do think that, sometimes horror can help us when it comes to trying to understand ourselves a little bit better.
Yeah. And like you said, like I think the content warnings are a great way to signal what's going on. There was an interview with Matt Smith not that long ago where he was complaining about content warnings on horror media specifically, and was like, well, you're giving it all away. Like you're not going to be surprised. And I remember talking to a friend about it and being like, then you did bad. You did a bad. Like if telling you that a thing happens in the story makes your story like not as exciting, like you did a bad one.
Right, exactly. Like if I were to tell you that Companion has content warnings about like abusive relationships, like you're still not going to know what the movie's about.
Right. It's like, oh, okay. It gets bad in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think I think so many people, as a person who's like grown into horror the last couple of years, like very specifically, like I went from not enjoying horror at all to starting to test the waters and find, and starting to find what I like and enjoy that and explore outward. I think the thing that bugs me about a lot of horror fans is like the idea that like you can't know anything. It has to be so completely secret. You have to like no, everything has to exist secret, and you open this secret box, and then just all of the bad things happen to you, and you can't be prepared for them at all. And I'm like, no, I think you could do it a little bit. I think you could do it a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like that's similar mindset with like people that go to haunts and like they just want to go without knowing anything, but it's like you kind of want to know what you're getting yourself into, like before going into a haunt. Like, what if it's boring? What if it's not something that you're interested in? Um, I went to one haunt that had like people literally put like a whole bunch of barriers down that was just like for queuing, and that was the haunt, like one of the rooms of the haunt. You're just queuing. You're going through like
that's funny.
Yeah, like the weird what are they called, like the lines, like the things that they went down for the lines, and I was just like going through that, and that was it, and I was just like, this is very funny, but I can't believe I paid $40 for this.
Yeah, right. This is funny in a way that I don't think you were going for. I don't think you were going for the experience that I'm taking away from this room.
Exactly.
Oh, that would be very. See, I want that person to take that idea and run with it in a weird, like, existential horror way.
Right.
Like that's a cool idea. I think you just messed up in this one though. I think you stumbled onto a good idea. I feel like I really want to take this moment. Have you played the Alan Wake video games at all?
Yes. Okay. Yes. I played the first. I haven't played the second one yet.
I always have a moment during the podcast where I want to recommend something to someone, and I don't know if that's gauche.
Oh no, please.
Yeah, because I feel like Alan Wake, especially the new one, and Double, especially the new DLC, has a lot to say about art and like the emotions around art. If you haven't played Alan Wake 2, that's great. It's very, very good. And then the DLC levels, the lake house. You can play that if you haven't played the main game. It takes place kind of near the beginning. You should know what's going on. But it has there's some very interesting stuff that it says about like art, people's emotions when creating art, the emotions that people take from art. It's very interesting, and I love Remedy and Sam Lake. Like Sam has a lot in his works about creation of art and the validity of art and the value, air quotes and not air quotes, of art. And I feel like a lot of that comes together in that DLC in a really fun way.
That's really good to know. It's been on my list for some time, and now I'm just like, okay, this has solidified it. I should really get it.
And it's spooky as hell. It's really good.
Yeah.
They had to turn down the jump scares.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they had, I think they had a setting where it was like high or low, and then it came out and we're like, we're making like a lower. We're gonna, which I think is great. I think jump scares are the very easy one. It's very easy to get exhausted with, depending on your personal tolerance and what you're doing. I think I played it with regular and had a good time. But I also really like sometimes, you're walking in a room and just, it's fun. Yeah. It can be fun.
The Pacific Northwest is terrifying.
It's so scary. I don't know why anyone lives there now. Like
I live there. I live here right now.
I have friends who live out there and they're like, Matt, come move out here. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like one day I'm going to hear a sound in the woods. I'm going to wander away and you're never going to hear from me again. But I do live in Appalachia, so I don't think I'm one to talk. Like, I think I have the opposite problem. Yeah, I think it's the same thing.
Maybe everywhere is just terrifying.
I mean, I think everywhere has its own horror, and that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
I think everywhere has its own brand of spooky nonsense. Gosh, now we just get some fun freeform questions.
Ooh,
yeah. I'm trying to get better at, this is the 12th episode of the podcast. So this is the 12th time I've ever done this. And I'm trying to get better at, here's a question I came up with. Here's a question leading off of the question we just talked about. Here's pulling more stuff and doing active listening and trying to, and it's annoying when I listen back for editing and stuff where I go, I should ask this. I should have asked this. And it's tricky.
Oh no. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's a different skill. My partner is very supportive. She's like, this is a different skill. This is a different thing. You don't have any experience with it. I'm like, I know, but also I should be good immediately.
It's also very hard to do. Like sometimes you don't like really process everything that's just happened until much later too.
And especially with, I think you can be having a conversation about something, and this is very specifically like, I want to have this discussion in a way that is like, I said to somebody else, I'm like, I view this as essentially marketing for a thing where like, I want people to be interested in a thing. I want people to be interested and engage with a thing and with a person's works and things like that. And so I'm always like, how do I pull, thoughts and ideas and things to make people interested to engage with a game or I don't know, anything else.
Yeah, it's really helpful it's helpful for me for sure, and I can see it being helpful for other people.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thought at the beginning, where I was like, I feel like people would love the ability to just talk about their game in a way that is not, here's an actual play, here's here's an example or whatever. It's just like, yeah, I can't, like, I think it's so funny to be like, Banana Chan, how'd you come up with this game? I used to sneak into Fashion Week and I got a free jacket. And so I made a game about that.
I'm really sad about that jacket. I think I lost it when we moved to Seattle. So
that is upsetting.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I still have any free stuff from Fashion Week. I was there this past year, in 2024, and that was a fun time. Met Paris Hilton, even though we had met once before. So I snuck into this is another story. This is like back in, I want to say like it's definitely before the pandemic. So it was like 2016, 2017, probably even before that, actually, now that I think about it, probably 2015, 2014. Let's say around 2014. There is this company called Opening Ceremony, and they were hosting a party at Webster Hall. Webster Hall is this it's like this venue, that's sort of like hosts any sort of show. So like they have punk shows there. They also have like big parties there. They also have just like any band that typically goes through the rite of passage of playing at Webster Hall. And so they had a party there, and there was a massive line, and me and my friend, we were like, why don't we try getting in line and seeing what happens? So we get to the front of the line, and they turn us away because they're just like, you can't get in here, you're not on the list. And so we were just like, okay, cool. Instead of going home, we go to a Dwayne Reed, and we sort of think about like what are our next steps. We saw a bunch of people hanging out in the smoking section with silver wristbands, and so we were like, well, what if we get a silver wristband and we'll just fake our way in? Dwayne Reed doesn't carry wristbands, so we were like, okay, they have folders, they're silver, maybe we'll just get some scissors, we'll buy some scissors, we'll buy some folders, and we'll cut up a folder and create our own wristbands. The Dwayne Reed employees were really nice. They were helping us make these wristbands. They got like tape for us to like tape the wristbands on. And we get to the smoking section of Webster Hall, and the bouncers just like waving us in. They were just like, come in, come in, come in. And we were just like, oh, sweet. Okay, we're going to go through. We get into the party, and Paris Hilton's there, Nikki Hilton's there, MIA is playing on the stage. I think, I'm trying to remember who else was there. There were like all these different celebrities that were just hanging out. I met Rick Janest, who was in, I think it was one of Lady Gaga's music videos. He's more commonly known as Skullboy, I believe, but he has like tattoos from like head to toe, just like he's like a skeleton, basically. Unfortunately, he passed away recently, but I mean, it's not recent anymore. It's been a few years, but met him. He was very sweet. And I'm trying to think, like, what else happened that night? I do remember taking a lot of milk cookies. Like, do you know that brand Milk?
Yes.
Okay, they're just starting out. No one knew about them. They were like, we're giving away free cookies. We had bags full of these, like shopping bags full of these cookies that we brought home. Yeah, it was bonkers. It was probably one of the more fun nights I've had.
I love the idea of these Dwayne Reed employees. Like, yes, we will help you make these fake wristbands.
Great like that. Honestly, like
I love it.
Yeah, people in New York are great.
That's so funny.
I just remembered Natasha Lyonne was there too, but she wasn't famous at the time. She was just like hanging out. She's like in Poker Face, and oh god, what else is she in? She's like in a bunch of stuff now. But
yeah. That's funny. Yeah, because in 2014 she wasn't. She was somebody, I'm sure, because she was there, but she wasn't as famous. That's so funny. Yeah. I love faking your way into a like a big party like that stories.
Oh yeah.
They're always so funny. They're always so funny, where it's just like, those people don't get paid a lot, and they're really just paid to like keep people who obviously don't look like they're here out.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you got the silver yeah, okay, whatever. For as much as they pay me, yeah, go ahead. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny. That made me remember you were talking about, going to all these different like music events and arts events and stuff. Mm. And I think there's definitely a group of people. We went to a podcast show. We went to see Old Gods of Appalachia at a local arts thing. And I remember sitting there and like crowd watching as we're getting ready to go in and looking at people. And I'm just like, you're not here for that. Mm-hmm. You have like season tickets to the venue. And you just go to whatever. Either it's Tuesday. What do you want to do? We'll go to the thing. Whatever. And I think that's such an interesting idea, and likely not done by as many people as would find it interesting. Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of people do it to do a thing and aren't adventurous. They're not like, yeah, we'll go see a thing. I don't know what it is. It'll be interesting. And are just like, oh, we'll do. I donate enough money every year, and it's a whole.
Yeah, they're so in New York every Thursday night, I think it's like from 4 to 6 p.m. is gallery hopping night. And so you would see the same people go to these things. They're not excited for the art. They're just there to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always the same group of older people who go from gallery to gallery, collecting the free wine, talking people up, and then going to the next thing. And it's very interesting because it's all free. Like you don't have to pay to do any of this. It's just like a thing to do. It's just an activity. And people even say like, if you're looking for a cheap date, go gallery hopping on a Thursday night. So yeah, I think it's definitely a strange sort of adventurous thing to do if you don't have anything else going on that night and you want to just like, check out some art or check out some shows it could be a good time or it could be something that you're not into at all.
I think that's fun though. I think the idea of I'm just like, yeah, I don't know what's gonna be there. We'll find out.
Yeah,
we'll see. And gosh, it would be fun. And that was the thing. I was like, I bet you there are people that have these tickets that are like, well, that sounds weird. I've never heard of this. Let's go. And then are sitting there 10 minutes in, like, the hell is happening? There was somebody that left in the intro that we laughed about the whole night because they were talking about like, they were talking about like somebody like queer came up or something came up, and there was a couple like 3 sort of diagonal from us that were like, oh. I was just like, all right.
Wow, that's awkward.
It was very just like, okay, we're gonna go.
It's like more awkward for them than it is for anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also awkward that they're like getting up and leaving. It's like, what?
Yeah, just deal with it now. You're here. Just deal with it.
Just ride it out.
Just sit through it.
Yeah.
How weird was it to design a Scooby-Doo game? I gotta know. How did that happen?
At the time, yeah. So I am friends with Brian Neff. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he works for Restoration Games. His fun fact about him is that his middle name is Murder Knuckles, and that is
fun.
That is his legal middle name. And that's because he changed his legal name actually, I don't know if I should be talking about this because it's his thing, but I'm just going to say that that's his legal middle name.
I'm not going to tell you why, but it did happen.
It did happen.
If you want to know, you got to be friends with him and find out, and then he'll tell you.
Right, exactly. And so I'm friends with him, and he introduced me to Noah. Oh shoot, what's his last name? I think it's Cohen. But anyway, he introduced me to the group over at Restoration Games, and we started chatting. And then he was like, "Hey, we got a gig coming up soon. Do you want to be a part of it?" And I was just like, "Hell yeah, whatever it is, I'll sign up for it because we're friends." And so turns out it was the Scooby-Doo Betrayal at Mystery Mansion game. And so for research for that game, I rewatched every single episode of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? A few episodes of the newer series. I think a few of the movies too. There was a whole list that we could watch and take inspiration from. And so, created the haunts that way. I was a lead haunt designer because I like literally rewatched everything, and just like was taking notes. I had like an extensive we worked with an extensive sheets document, so that way we knew what every single episode was about, what are some fun things, what are some things that you can use in the game, and just basically going through all of it. And that made the approvals process really easy because we were taking everything that was from the brand itself and making sure that it fit into the game. Obviously, because Where Are You is from like the 70s or the 60s or whatever, there were some things that were a little bit problematic that might have not made it, that would have worked out in modern times. And so we adjusted a few things here and there, but their brand team was fine with everything. We got everything approved and it was good to go. So it was a combination of making sure that the both IPs, so the Betrayal at House on the Hill IP and the Scooby-Doo IP, like basically made sense for the brand, and we weren't doing anything that was too funky or off-brand or anything like that. And so that's basically how the game came to be. We did a lot of play testing at a house con, worked through it, worked out some kinks, and then basically, yeah, it got published, and that was really exciting. I will say that sometimes I read like feedback on the game from people who aren't actually Scooby fans. I know I sound like very pretentious, because they would say things like
they don't know the lore.
They don't know the lore, so like how would they know? But they like ask questions, or they're kind of snooty about like, I didn't know that Daphne does box, or it's not Daphne, it was actually, I think it was Velma who does like boxing and stuff. Like there's like a whole background story of like all these characters and like the stuff that they did, their side hobbies, if you will, in these various episodes, and we added those to the actual character descriptions, and people would be like, well, I didn't know this about this character, and like this person obviously doesn't know anything about Scooby, and I'm like, I literally watched every single episode. Like, this is
I'll open the spreadsheet.
Lore.
Don't try me. I'll open it up
Yeah.
and I'll point at it.
Exactly. So
That's
yeah, that was a
amazing.
very interesting time.
That's so funny. That's just, it's one of the, it's the, just the wild list of things of just like, oh, what games did you, this and this and this. Oh, and I did that Scooby-Doo game. And it's like, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Say that again? That's so funny.
Oh, I remember now. Daphne has a motorcycle. That's the one. That's the one that people were so hung up on. And I was like, Daphne literally had a whole episode dedicated to her motorcycle and doing weird things. And I don't know where Fred was. Fred was like gone somewhere. But yeah, she was just hanging out with, I think it was like Shaggy and Scooby, and she had a motorcycle.
That's great. I do. Oh man, that's so funny. I was thinking about watching Scooby-Doo again not that long ago.
There's
I
a
was
lot.
like, I was like, I didn't like it like that much as a kid, and then there was definitely a point where I was like, oh, I like this. This is cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe I'll do that, and then I'll write the expansion.
Yeah, do the expansion for Scooby.
I just write it like I just write it in a book, and I'm like, I did it there. Was it public? No, I wrote it.
Send it to Brian. Murder Knuckles
Down.
Neff.
I know how you got your middle name, and so you gotta do it. I know the secret. That's so funny. I've asked a lot of the TTRPG designers about this, and I think this is an interesting topic, especially given the genre and everything of the games. I want to phrase this in a way because I don't want to. I got to find the middle between like interesting and pretension, right?
Ooh.
Because I don't want the question to be just like, how's art? Like I already had my silly snooty question. We did it. It was there. It was funny.
That was fun. That was so fun.
Yeah, it was.
I like
It was.
it.
We had a good time.
Yeah.
So I think I've been thinking a lot, especially since doing this, of the importance of art in TTRPGs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is a thing that goes overlooked a lot of the times. And I'm going to do that thing where I stop telling you what I think and instead ask what you think. What is your, and again, this is the thing where it's just like, what's your relationship with art? That's a silly question. But like, what do you feel is the art's place in TTRPGs? How do you think about it? How do you address it?
Yeah, I always think about TTRPGs sort of as as a medium. So it's definitely just another medium, sort of like painting, sort of like screenwriting, sort of like novel writing. It's just a way for us to tell stories, but the function of it, and I would say like I would say the function of it is a little bit different in terms of how we interact with it because it is more engaging, not in a way that's like negative or anything like that, but like
Mm.
engaging in the sense that it's more immersive because you are doing the thing and you are building the story with the creator as you're going through it. So I'll give a little bit more of a concrete example. Movies are already made. You can't change the movie once it's made. You can talk about it through critiques. You can write an essay about it. You can do video, essays about it. Books, similar thing. You can't really like adjust it, or you could still annotate the book, but like you can't really change something once it's been published because that other people don't have that same copy. They're going to be like the way that they experience it is going to be very different. When we're talking about TTRPGs, I think that it goes even further, like it pushes even further on like the interpretation of like how is this interpreted through your lens versus someone else's lens, because everyone could be watching the same movie. They'll come out of it with different interpretations. But for TTRPGs, you have an active role in actually adjusting the story, an active role in playing out these characters, an active role in, completely destroying the game if you wanted to, like breaking the rules or, creating your own. And so I think that's what makes it a lot more collaborative in terms of when you're going through, if you're like an audience member for like a TTRPG, you are actually engaging with it with the artist versus looking at a painting or watching a movie. So I think that it's definitely like more of like an immersive process, an immersive product. And I mean product as in like uppercase P, like product, as in, like, you birthed a product, versus like lowercase p, I sell products. And yeah, I think that, the way we think about it is it should be like thought about the same way that we think about art, like other forms of art, right? Like movies, television, books, books as in novels, paintings, anything else. We're just not quite there yet, I think.
I think there's a lot of like bits that go into it. It's weird to like consider how much art is in like a D&D book. But if I think about it, like I don't know, I couldn't name anybody who does art for those books. I'm sure I could look it up, and I'm sure I could find. And well. So what I mean is like, I feel like when people talk about those books, they don't talk about the people who made the art. Do you know what I mean?
Are we talking about illustrations, or are we talking about art as in the creators of the game?
Oh, we're talking about illustrations. That explains a little bit of the answer that you gave. That's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
That's on me. That's on me. I used capital A art in context of all of this, and I see now where our paths diverged.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I totally misunderstood. I'm sorry.
No, that's fair. I wasn't clear because again, art, lot of definitions in that word. Illustrations is a better. Illustrations is a better word.
Yeah. Love illustrations in books.
Yeah.
Love
it was funny.
Illustrators.
It was funny as you were talking. It was like this, and I was like, "Where are we?" I've where like it felt like you were swinging back and forth. I'm like, okay, I don't know. Okay, I feel well. It was that kombucha gif? But yeah, do you want to take another stab at that now that we understand each other? I'm sorry.
What was the question again?
And this is why it's such a weird question, right? Because it's like how important is art? Important, obviously, stupid.
Mhm.
Um, but like, what do you think about like the role of illustrations in in? We're gonna be clear now. We're gonna understand each other.
Yes.
What do you think about the role of illustrations in TTRPG? Like how do you like to use them? What do you think about them?
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah. I like illustrations in a way that, because words can only carry so much meaning to them. And I think for me, like if I wanted to convey a clear message about like what I want the players, audience, whatever, to experience, then I think art is really helpful to just sort of convey that. Again, it's never going to be like, 100% understood, because what I have in my mind is probably not going to be the same as what the players have in mind, and they're probably going to twist it or change it or whatever. But at the same time, I do think that art plays a really vital role in trying to get the point across. I would say, like, as an example, like, the story about the cover with forgery, right? Like, I know there's like a lot of layers to like how we got there, but I need it to be there. Like, I need that, Alex Ekman Lawn, who's the artist, the illustrator for the cover, he did a fantastic job. Like, I sent him like the photo of the image of the painting, basically from my friend, and told him the entire story. He adapted it, made it like this weird, creepy cover. And I feel like even if no one knows the story behind this, it still sort of adds that layer of like, this is what this thing is about. It's weird. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just like these are the vibes that I want to convey. Um, and so I think that that's why it's really important. It's just like trying to convey those vibes and like, the thing that you want to tell, even if it's already written down somewhere in text format, it might not necessarily come across the same way as it would visually.
Mm. Yeah, I think it feels like such a weird question to me, but it's something like I can't get out of my head, and it's something I want to bring up every time talking with designers. And an interview I had very recently was a game designer who was also an illustrator and illustrated all of the stuff for his book.
Mhm.
And it was obviously great to talk to him about that and get his perspective. But I feel like in a weird way, like for so long when I was reading TTRPGs and engaging with books, I wasn't concerned with the illustrator as a collaborator.
Mm.
Like it didn't feel like that was part of it.
Mhm.
And I feel like just the last couple years, and it's probably because I know more people who do illustrations and art and things for books, where I go like, oh yeah, a person did that, and I feel like it doesn't get brought up as much. I feel like people don't engage with it in the same way that they do for other things, and it's weird, and it's like, and that's why I feel like it's such a weird question, because I just kind of like gesture at this and go like, oh, huh?
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I think that one of the games that came to mind was Deimos Academy, because Amanda Call, she's the illustrator for the books, and John Merchant's the graphic designer. Both of them had a really large role to play in creating the game, because it was so art focused, right?
mm,
Like you're going through these different rooms, and it's a coloring book. So you're like literally coloring in the items in these different rooms, and those items and those rooms are illustrated by Amanda. So we had to go back and forth a lot and trying to figure out like what would make sense for the space. And so I think that if it's a game that requires a lot of, like, if the art is a part of the mechanics, then it might be easier to talk about. Similarly, like with forgery, because it's a game about painting, I illustrated the demons and painted the chapter headers, which I'll never do again, hopefully, because that was way too much work. But yeah, I think that like, if it makes sense and it fits with the mechanics and the function, then I think that that's when like artists really have a place to shine. Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen that way, and
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully,
it's curious to like to consider them this way because like you said, like they can be a big part of the collaborative process.
yeah.
I was talking with George from Three Sales Studios, and he was talking about just like how important the artist, artist member of the team was to like helping shape their vision, and how it was so
Mm,
important for them to be working collaboratively and building this together and all of this. Um, and so I don't know. It's one of those things that I've noticed, and I'm like, I feel like people don't talk about the people who do the illustrations for TTRPGs
yeah.
in the same way that they do like designers, like in the way of the person who wrote the text.
Hmm.
And in the same way, like layout people, like how important layout is a thing I feel like the greater audience doesn't understand how important it is to a
Hmm.
quality product.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think that the benefit of having a smaller team is that a lot of folks that are on those teams can have more room to shine, I think. So, say for example, a Kickstarter happens and your team is like, I don't know, a size of 5 people, then when you're doing updates, everyone sort of has equal time to shine and you can sort of like spotlight them and do all of that. But I think that with bigger companies, when they, say if it's like a D&D book or something like that, right? The bigger the team, the harder it is to shine that light on all the various people that are working on all these different moving parts.
mhm,
I think that might be one of the reasons why art is so overlooked. The same reason why, layout artists are overlooked. It's because, with these bigger teams, it's just hard to get everyone on camera or talking about the stuff.
mhm.
But with a smaller team, I think like, we can definitely make it easier or at least I think it's easier for me to spotlight these people just because it's like, oh, we got an update for today. Let's talk about this person. Or, we want to have some interviews to fill out some content. And let's ask if, I don't know, like John Merchant's free or, Alex Etman is free or, Robert Richburg is free or Janaea Kemper, like all these different people, like, just asking them if they have availability and getting them more visibility on a smaller project but wider scale is like
Mhm.
very different from a big company trying to do that.
I think that's the fun of something like Kickstarter, some sort of crowdfunding thing where it gives you a lot of space to highlight each individual person and gives you space to really notice their contribution and sort of call it out. Um, it's been such a fun thing the last few years, becoming more and more familiar with different designers, of seeing Kickstarters come out and like, oh, look at all these cool contributors we got as stretch goals or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I know that person. That's cool. That's exciting. I mean, and you're more excited for the product
Mhm.
because you know all these people.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that TTRPGs kind of they're sort of like comic books in a way where, folks really focus in on the cover. And
Hmm.
so, most people would probably be excited for the cover artist, but they might not necessarily know who the artists are for the interior stuff.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's definitely a weird challenge.
And it's I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. I think we should just have this discussion about art's cool.
Yeah, ask
It's
illustrators
20
to do the covers for things.
it's 2025 and generative AI is destroying everything, so maybe just art's cool. I don't know.
Uh,
Maybe we should talk about
yeah.
that. um Okay, so I know we're coming up on our time. So I got two questions. Just
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you all day. Um, this popped into my head. You're the first person that I'm going to ask this, but I this might make it into the regular rotation. An interesting thing that I saw very recently was Spencer Campbell, Gila RPGs, if you're familiar,
Yeah.
talking about like his end, like the end of his career. You know, like
Mm.
very specifically knowing of just like, yeah, I've got like a couple more games, and then I think I'm done.
Hmm.
And I wonder if you've given any consideration to like what does what does the end of rewrite memory look like? Like what is the end of I'll listen. I'll make a joke about it. Banana Chan designed a normal game challenge impossible. That'd be hilarious. But like do you design games as a way to evoke specific ideas, or is it just like, yeah, I've got this silly idea, and maybe one day I'll run out of silly ideas, and then that's the end of it?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think
Yeah,
that,
it seems wild to me to just be so certain about it. Just like, yeah, I've got like a couple more ideas, and then when I'm done with those,
yeah,
we'll hang it up.
I think that I really like making things. And because I like making things, it's going to be hard for me to stop. And I don't think that the things I make will always look the same, but I think that I'll continue making those things regardless of what format or what medium or whatever they are. I'm just going to probably continue to make things. So when it comes to TTRPGs, it might not be a TTRPG in the future, but it'll still be something.
I feel like you would design an escape room.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a little bit. So every year at OrcaCon, I have a murder mystery LARP where I basically give the players a bunch of puzzles and characters that they can act out, and I die, so that way I can just watch them play and I don't have to do anything.
That's so I don't have to do anything. It's so real.
They can just solve my murder and I'll just be dead on a table.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so good. Have you seen anything about the Jubentia games?
I played one.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you? That's
Yes.
cool.
It was very good. And honestly, it has the same sort of like thought process of like, it's not a replayable game, but
Mm-hmm.
like,
I
does it
should have thought of
matter?
that sooner. Damn.
It doesn't matter though. And I'm just like, I'm really into this because it's a one play thing. I'm done with it. I see all these little artifacts. People are like, collecting their little notes and stuff. And yeah, I'm a fan. I like them. Uh, I was thinking about making my own, but then I was like, I have like five other games I gotta finish first before I can get into this.
A friend of mine is working to bring more of them to the U.S. And
Yes.
I was very surprised there that People Make Games video came out, and I shared it with him, and I shared it with some people, and we all got very excited about it. And then I was like, I was excited for people to be really excited about it, and then nobody's really that excited about it. I'm kind of surprised.
Oh, okay. I think people were a little
Yeah,
bit more excited for it, but
I
yeah.
well, I guess I guess I should say I don't mean I guess people aren't excited about it. I don't see anybody talking about it in
Oh,
that way.
interesting. Okay.
I thought it was gonna hit in a really big way, and like there
Yeah.
was gonna be interest in all of this, and then I'm just like there's these things. Have you guys heard of these things?
Yeah.
I feel like the crazy guy.
I feel like, so I think, and this is me speculating a little bit, that the reason why it's so popular in China is because media is restricted over there.
Mm,
And as a result, anything that's like weird or different or experimental blows up because there's so much restriction on what you can consume, right? So
mm, mm.
movies are they have to go through like a extensive censoring process. They have to go through like, a lot of vetting before it can be shown. And same with like, news or whatever, right? Like a lot of things have to be vetted before they can actually be exposed to the public. And so that's why I think Jubensha is taking over, the country over there right now because I mean, they're making like billions and billions of dollars over there. And as a result, I don't think that it would work out as well here because we have a glut of media. We can just like, go through all this different stuff. Well, it's probably impossible to like, go through every single piece of media that's available to you. And I don't know, you still have so much probably. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's probably not as popular here because our attentions are, I mean, not just our attentions, but our time is so limited and there's so much stuff out there. So it's like, would you rather pay attention to a Jubensha or would you rather, I don't know, watch the next season of Severance because Severance is very good as well.
That is true. That is true. We are very close to starting the second season of Severance.
It's so good. Oh my God.
My wife likes to binge shows, which makes it very difficult to watch the shows that they don't release all at once.
Yeah.
So we agreed that I think it's next week or something. Once there's enough episodes out that we're going to start because then we can probably keep up and it'll be fine. But no, Severance is and if you like Severance, again, that Alan Wake DLC has some very weird. Actually, if you like Severance, Control is also very good.
I love Control. Oh my God. Right. I love brutalism. That's like my thing. I love it.
So yeah, it's fun. I like recommending Alan Wake to people. It didn't sell as many as I think it should have, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it.
I gotta play it. I gotta play the second one. I really do.
It goes on sale frequently enough that I, as a person who bought it brand new, am a little annoyed.
Oh no! Okay.
It went on sale a little quick. That I was like, guys, I just gave you $70 for this.
Oh.
Maybe. But they just finally started making their money back, so that's good. They're working on like 3 games. They can have the money. It's fine. I'm not mad.
Yeah, I'm not mad.
A lot. Yeah, they're all. It's wild how many games they're working on and how like upfront they are about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're just very like, yeah, we're working on this game, and then like this game is like we're kind of working on this one, and then this one is next, and we'll get to it eventually. And it's like, okay,
cool.
Yeah, cool. I don't know why you're telling me no one else does this. No one does this, right? This is just no one does like update alerts.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, they had since you like Control, do you know their next game, Firebreak?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
You play as one of the FBC agents in the oldest house, like fighting back all the hiss and stuff.
What?
It's a 3-player co-op multiplayer shooter.
Oh my God.
I think it was like a year ago. They were like, yeah, our original plan was for this to be like a live service updated thing. We're not going to do that. We're actually just going to make like a game and maybe do some updates, but we're not going to do like a service battle pass model. And I was like, well, that's sick. Actually, that's great.
That's so cool.
No, it looks great. I keep forgetting about it, and then someone will mention it, and I'll go, "Oh yeah, actually, yes, excited."
Oh my God, this looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check this out.
It makes me feel good that both of my trying to recommend things has gone over well. That's good. Makes me feel happy. All right, last question.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the 3 question. I did this for the first episode. I asked my guest what her favorite who are the 3 people she would like to have most on her podcast. Ooh. And we had a good time, and I was like, I'm going to do this every time. I'm going to ask the guest top 3 something, and I'll come up with it. And what's funny is we've talked about so many things. I've come up with like 3 or 4 different ones, and I'm just trying to decide which one is like the funniest. And to give you an example of one that I don't want to go with, but I do think would be really funny, is top 3 favorite 2000s famous people who should have been famous. See, I think that'd be funny. I don't know if that's the one I want though.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah. But the one I will go with, God, we talked about so many things.
We did. We really did.
It's good though. I feel like people think that they talk too much. Like multiple people have said, like, I'm sorry for talking so much. I'm like, what do you mean? That's literally the point of being on the podcast is for you to talk a lot about whatever. So thank you. It's the point. Yeah. How would I want to phrase this? The phrasing is important. You got to phrase it like a genie wish.
Oh God.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes I want to ask a very specific question, but I want to leave it open ended because I've had a couple where I've asked people the question and then they've given me answers that weren't what I asked for, but it was that like, yeah, that's technically an answer. Good for you.
Oh.
So, God, I want for it to be about horror, but I don't know. You can't just say top 3 horrors. That's not anything.
Top 3 horrors.
Top 3 horrors. Like that's not a
horror movie. It's just horrors.
Yeah. And you're like, what are your top 3 horrors? You're like that dread you get when you go to bed too late and you can't fall asleep and you're laying in the dark of your room.
It's horror. That is a really good. I mean, that
is a good one.
That is a good horror. Yes.
Gosh. While I'm thinking of this, because I forgot to ask this, did you try to get Scrappy Doo in the Scooby Doo game?
I'm trying to remember if we did. Did
they not clear it? Were they like, no?
I think they said no to it. I think it was a part of the fair. Let's not do this.
That makes sense.
But I don't remember why. Yeah, I think it had something to do with like licensing or something.
Because that would be my first question. If they were like, do you want to design a Scooby-Doo board game? I'd be like, can we get Scrappy Doo? Is this like where do we land? Where do we land on the Scrappy Doo situation? Top 3 art isn't good either. Here we go. All right. Banana, what are the top 3 feelings that you want people to feel while playing your games?
Anxiety. Disgust.
No, I said while playing your games, not like just walking around.
Oh. Well, just a sense of normalcy then.
Yeah, just like, but how is that different? I talked over you saying disgust, and that's great.
Disgust.
That's a good one.
Disgust and discomfort. Those are those the same? I don't know. They could be the same. There's an overlapping feeling there. Also, anxiety is not really a feeling. So let me scratch that. So let me say disgust. Disgust for sure.
That can be one. That's why I said you got to word this like a genie's wish. Because listen, you can make that one, and and be like, no, and now I have 2 more.
Maybe like disgust, confusion, and anger. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense given the themes.
Yes.
I like that. Anxiety is tricky because I think the interesting thing about anxiety is it's a thing that I don't think you notice until it's over. Or like you only notice it once you go like, you know what I mean? Like you it's like I don't know if you like when you're playing a scary game or you watch a scary movie or something, like it's the tension, right? And I don't think you notice the tension until it's like all the way, or you get to a breaking point and then you realize like, you didn't realize how tense you were in that moment.
Yeah, my therapist says that anxiety is a side effect of some other feeling. So that's why I'm like, oh, okay, well, fine. I can't say anxiety.
Okay, smart person said it's not a feeling, so
okay, fine, whatever.
Stupid therapist.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, what the hell? Fine, is it guilt? That's better. He doesn't sound like that.
It's definitely healthy to mock your therapist. That's definitely good. It's definitely a good thing. But no, I guess that has to be the end. We have to end at some point because at some point it has to go out. I could definitely do this another hour, but this was amazing. Banana Chan, thank you so much.
Thank you
This was
so
incredible.
much. Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
It continues to surprise me how excited people are to do this. Though, as I keep saying, I guess I shouldn't be. People love talking about their stuff. People love sharing the cool stuff that they create, and so maybe I shouldn't be so surprised.
Yeah, this is a fun time, and honestly, you're a great interviewer. So I
Well,
love being here.
that means a lot. I appreciate that. As you know, as a little outro, Panetta, please, where can people find you? What do you got going on? What are you excited about?
Yeah,
I've been thinking about adding a question about like what are people reading and stuff like that, but I feel like I would have to tell them ahead of time to like prep.
Oh, I have a few things I'm reading right now.
Yeah, because I'm always curious what like what are people reading? What are people excited about? What are they
Yeah. Wait. So okay, I'm gonna start off. Wait, should I do the reading first, or should I do the social media stuff first?
Whatever you want.
Okay. I have a lot of books.
I edit this so lightly.
Okay. So lightly. I am currently reading. I feel like a lot of people are going to give me shit about it, but I like weird books that are kind of like that movie Altered States.
No.
There's a horror movie called Altered States. I think it's from the 80s. And I love books that are about that are just like sort of like that kind of thing. And Altered States, just like a quick rundown of what it is. It's a sci-fi movie about like a bunch of scientists, and they're trying to figure out like some weird like who is like the I'm gonna like say this wrong, so I'm just gonna pull it up on Wikipedia and I'm just gonna read literally the description of what the plot is. Yeah, it's basically like a bunch of scientists like doing weird sensory deprivation research in like isolation tanks. They're doing like a lot of drugs. They're doing like mescaline and ketamine and LSD and all that stuff. And they're just like trying to, I don't know, they're just like having a fun time. It's just like really weird. It's like during that time, it's like about that time when like when scientists had so much money, they were like literally kidnapping dolphins and like putting them in homes, like literal houses, and forcing people to like hang out with them. It's like about that era. And so because I like that kind of media, I read very strange books. So I hope no one's going to judge me for this, but I'm reading Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza right now. It is a New York Times bestseller. I will give it that. It is a very strange book. It is so weird. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. Because it is so weird, but it talks about like brain waves and theta and beta and like alpha brain waves. And like states of like different like states of being in general. It's really fucking weird. It has like a whole meditation dedicated to it. Like the writer of the book created like his own series of meditations that he has on YouTube. Which makes it feel even more fun. I don't know. It just feels very fun. So yeah, I'm enjoying that a lot.
I think the people that want to give you shit for it, I think sometimes you can engage with something, and that doesn't mean that you like subscribe to it or that you like believe in it, especially when it comes to like things that might be like weird science adjacent. Like I think it's just like you read a book about something, you know. And as long as you're like, yeah, I know that these ideas might be weird or harmful or whatever, and I'm engaging and I'm curious, that's fine. I think people get weird about it sometimes.
A book that I also want to quickly mention, because I think that I talked about a book at the end of the podcast, but I also want to note this other book that really influenced the way that Knockoff was designed. It's called The Chiffon Trenches, a memoir by Andre Leon Talley, and it goes through Talley's experiences working in the fashion industry, basically doing a lot of creative director type stuff. So I believe he was a creative director for some time. He worked alongside Anna Wintour and a lot of these incredible women in the fashion industry, and he talks about his experiences through just like the fashion world. Some of the stories are bonkers, by the way. It's just like the most ridiculous, glamorous stories. Of course, some of them are also very they're like stories of like, how he had to go through a lot, especially as like, a black man in fashion. But there are some stories that are just they're just bonkers. They're just like the most ridiculous stories. Like there's one with Madonna that's like very not safe for work, which I will not talk about on this podcast, but it's like, you just have to read it. They're incredible stories. I highly recommend checking it out. And yeah, definitely a huge inspiration for Knockoff as well. I'm also reading a book about the people that kidnapped a dolphin. But yeah, that's like a separate book that I'm reading. And I also feel like, okay, so side tangent, I feel like this is related, like the stuff in the book is sort of related to the season of Severance too. So I'm like, am I just like piecing things together, or am I just making shit up in my head because I'm reading this book and I'm also watching the show?
Did I accidentally find the Severance ARG, or
are we all living it? Maybe.
I think so.
I think so too. I think it's aliens, honestly.
I think if corporations could put a chip in your brain to make you more efficient at work by not thinking of the outside world, they would do it.
Oh yeah. Would you do it? Would you be severed?
I don't know. I think there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
I'm a big wife guy. I say this a lot. So I really get that, like, yeah, I'm going to do that to like repress that trauma. Like I understand it at the very least of just like, yeah, all right, I get that. Yeah. But I also think that plays in a lot of like the ethical like complications of like, maybe you shouldn't be able to detach yourself from your humanity in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I was about to say, like, my partner hears the brunt of me talking about work, so like I get it. I don't think I would do it.
I think I would give it a good think. I don't know if I would ultimately do it, but I definitely think I would give it a good think.
Same. Yeah. If you're getting like free Lumen housing, then I'm just like, free Lumen housing too. You got a whole house.
Is that part of it? Is that a season 2 thing that they reveal?
Oh, I just assumed because
I had the same thought.
Weird house. Yeah.
Wait, I had the same thought in season 1 where I'm like I'm like a big Lost head. Like I loved Lost when it was coming out. Like I was big into the mystery and trying to piece stuff together. So when like we're watching season 1, like he's in the house right next to her, and I was like, this has to be like a housing
company housing.
Yeah, I'm like it has to be. It only makes sense.
Yeah.
But then like other people live other places, but the town is named after the guy. And so I was like, this has to be a company town situation. That's what makes the most sense.
Right.
Yeah.
When you watch season 2, let me know if you think it's aliens as well, because I think it's aliens.
I hope it's not aliens. But also, maybe it would be fun if it was aliens. I don't know.
I know, I'm just like boiling it down to it's just like saying that it's just aliens, but it's more than that, I think. I'm sure.
I'm excited. I'm excited to get to it. I've been waiting. I haven't had anything spoiled, thankfully. Shout outs to everybody on social media, but we're gonna hit a breaking point soon.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I totally went on a tangent. You can find me on social media at Banana Chan Games. I have Blue Sky, I have Instagram, and I have a YouTube too. So I think that's it. I've deleted pretty much almost everything else at this point. And you can find my company, Read Write Memory, at www.rwmemory.com. You can check out all of our games there. We're also on social media. We are on Instagram and I believe sometimes on Facebook, just because that's where the kids are these days.
Facebook ads, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. And then what was the other question? I forgot.
Oh, I think that was it. Just like
Is that
you know,
it? Okay.
who are you? What are you doing? What are you excited about? I mean,
Oh,
knock off the game that we're here to talk about, but we talked about that a lot.
yeah. So Knockoff is coming to Backer Kit on April. So very excited for that. April 9th is when it's going to launch. So super excited for that. Samples coming out shortly after that, probably next year or the year after. We'll see. And other than that, not much else. Just working on screenplays, working on writing stuff, and yeah,
Writing screenplays as you do.
yeah.
I mean, people do categorically.
Yeah,
But
people write stuff.
actually, I one of the few people that I met randomly through Twitter who wasn't a total weirdo is a screenplay writer, and it's weird how you meet people.
Yeah, I like screenwriters. They're very cool. I like receiving feedback from them. I will say that much. Because it's very direct. Like, I feel like this is going to be a little bit of like me going on a rant, but I think that game designers can learn a lot from screenwriters when it comes to giving feedback, because screenwriters are very good with being direct at their feedback without making it sound like too, I don't know, like too mean or anything like that. They're just like, these are the things I liked. These are like the themes I picked up. This is what I see could use some work. Can you like adjust these spots? And also, what's next? So, yeah, I think they're very good at it.
That's interesting. That's an interesting comparison. I always wonder how much of somebody's like creative expression is, and obviously it is, but like how much and in what ways people's creative expression are impacted by things like that. Like, oh yeah, I designed TTRPGs, but my background is in this, and then so like it's like, oh, how do you think about games and layout and rules and the mechanics and the whole thing because of that background, as opposed to somebody else who is, doesn't have that same background or has sort of self-taught where it's not their discipline at all. It's always a curious thing. I think of weird questions. That's why I started this podcast.
Yeah, I think you can apply stuff that you learn into anything that you do. So, yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's cool that people make things.
that's the quote for the podcast. Is I think it's cool people made things. Banana Chan. But that's gonna be it. Banana, thank you so much. This was super duper cool. Thank you for making time, and I'm very excited for Knockoff, and I hope everybody is too.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And that's it. Another episode, another interview. We did it, everybody. Banana Chan's new game, Knockoff, will be on crowdfunding very, very soon. The link will be in the show notes. So I highly recommend, if any of their other games that we talked about sound interesting to you, you go check those out as soon as you possibly can. I want to thank Banana again for taking time to sit down and chat with me and all of you. I continue to be amazed by people willing to sit down and take time to talk about their stuff and answer questions and listen to my silly jokes. Now, you may have noticed there was no video for this episode. That's because I forgot. I legitimately just forgot to start the recording. And that's fine, because I also realized I never double confirmed with Banana that it would be okay to do a video recording, because I want to make sure everybody's aware, and I double check that everybody's okay with that. And I didn't, and then I didn't record it. So it actually kind of all worked out in the end. The big problem is that I didn't do it for the next one as well. I'm trying to develop a workflow, which is to say I'm going to write a sticky note and put it on my workstation so that I can remember to do that going forward. So first off, I'm sorry to everybody. I'm more annoyed than you are, I promise. But going forward, I will try to remember all of the video stuff. I know everybody is probably being very nice and saying, hey, it's okay, everybody forgets. That's fine. But also, I want to do the best that I can to sort of match that everybody is doing the best that they can with all of the stuff that they're working on. I need to do the best that I can with the stuff that I'm working on, which is this podcast that all of you are so amazing to sit down and listen to. Thank you again. Thank you to everybody who's done a review, who's rated it, who shared it with a friend. If you tell one single person about this podcast, that's amazing to me, and I love you forever. I have one more recorded interview ready to go, so that'll be up in just a couple days. And then I have a number of interviews that are in a state of the fun nebulous cloud of scheduling, which is probably the worst part, because if I just knew it was happening, I'd feel a lot better about it. But when it's just the nebulous is happening sometime in the future, it's way more stressful than anything else. But now that this is done, I'm going to play some Monster Hunter Wilds this weekend. I hope everybody listen, you're probably not listening to this on Friday. I hope you have a wonderful time, whatever it is, wherever time it is, whatever you got going on. I hope you're having a good one, and I'll see you in the next one.